What's up, YouTube? We back with another review. Today we're gonna be reviewing Gachiakuta episode 14. Let's get it. So we get right into the episode. The cleaners on the move. They're speeding through the desert. And as the camera pans on to Engine, you can see him and the other cleaners are exhausted. Engine then explains, he says, and that's the reason why I'm the driver. He says if this was anybody else driving, we'd all probably fall asleep. As he says this, he drives right off a cliff. The other cleaners yell, "Hey man, you drive crazy." As we move along a little bit in the anime, Rudo recognizes that the cleaner Rio is still hurt very badly. She still has visible bruises and she's struggling. Rudo's confused. He's like, what is going on? Rio then explains that the spell casted on them by Remlin only protects them from the lethal stuff. The minor bumps and bruises, it don't really do anything to. Zunka overhears them talking and he tells Tams, he said, "Man, it's your fault. It was your vital instrument in your attack that almost killed him." After the guilt trip, Tamsy says, "All right, bro, I'm sorry." Continuing along, Engine tells the rest of the cleaners, "Hey man, we still have bumps and bruises from the last battle. So let's go to the doctor and get a checkup." And so as they pull up to the building where the doctor's clinic is located, Rudo says, hold on. Bro, I've been here before." And he would be right because the same crazy, obnoxious, loud doctor who treated him in the earlier episodes is back. And not changing at all, she yells at him and says, "What do you want? I got a patient here." Rudo awkwardly greets her. He says, old woman." She says, "Yeah, you got it right. I'm a woman." And as she's screaming at the top of her lungs, her patient says, "Hey, can you shut up? You giving me a headache." She hilariously responds and says, "You the one yelling. Shut up." The rest of the cleaners just watch in amazement as she chews out this poor guy. After she finally finishes with the guy yells at her and says, "I'll never come back here again, old hag." Engine tells her, he says, "This is why you get no patience." And as we move along, the cleaners are like, "Engine loves this weirdo doctor. He always drops by when he's close." Engine says, "Yeah, she's cool." He smiles and then he gives the rest of the cleaners a little bit lore about this doctor before she became the screaming crazy old lady. Engine explains that back in the day, she was one of the first doctors to treat body pollution. But not only that, she also studied polluted objects. But when she got too close to them, the effects of it made her a screaming maniac. After this quick lore on her, she introduces herself and gives her real name. Her real name is Alice Stilza. Rudo's like, wait, I've heard that name before. And just as he's thinking that, boom, two people walk into the door. It's the two sibling cleaners, August and Iyasha. The cleaners are shocked. They're surprised to see that this is actually the grandkids of Alice Stilza, the doctor. After yapping and introducing herself, they both compliment their grandmother on being a great doctor. Iyasha, the healer cleaner, the quiet one, says she learned all her skills from her grandmother. And moving along just a little bit, Alice, the doctor, and her granddaughter, Iyasha, heal all the cleaners. The work is done, and they finally leave the cleaners. But before they leave the cleaners, they tell them that a cloud is coming, and they need to seek shelter. Rudo then gets curious. He asks, "Hey, what's the cloud?" The cleaner Zunka says, "We'll run into it on the way back." And as we move along, that's exactly what happens. Because a storm of trash starts flooding from the spear. And while the cleaners are hiding out in a safe zone to protect themselves from the trash, Engine then starts to give Rudo a lore about the cloud and why it happens. He explains that the spear moves, and when it moves, all that trash from the spear falls down onto the ground, that causing a storm. He says that the people on the ground are already accustomed to what happens, so they find safe zones, places where they can't be hurt or injured by the trash that falls from the spear. He also tells Rudo that even with these safe zones, people still die from the trash clutter. And what this does is cause people to hate people in the spirit. It causes them to seek revenge. But every time they go and try to seek revenge, they get killed by the border. And as the border topic comes up, the rest of the cleaners ask Rudo, they're like, "Bro, how did you get past the border?" Rudo then has a faint memory, but he can't really picture it. It's just small little glimpses of what happened before he got thrown into the pit. And as Rudo's explaining, suddenly Engine's choker is ringing. It's Simiyu, the receptionist down at the cleaner's headquarters. She calls him and alerts him that they have an infestation at the cleaner's headquarters, so they might want to go the back way. After getting the news, they speed over to Cleaner's headquarters and they go through the back. Rudo asks Engine, he says, wait, an infestation? Y'all got bugs? Engine laughs it off. He says, yeah, they're called the Marauders. But we'll quickly find out that these are not insects. They're actually armed assailants trying to take over the Cleaner's headquarters. And as these crazed maniacs try shooting and blowing holes through the headquarters, Simiyu pops out and we finally get to see her vital instrument go to work. Because as the Marauders attack her with their weapons, she sparks up her vital instrument. And as the bullets are approaching, she somehow slows them down to where she can duck them. And after evading the first wave of attacks, one of the Marauders pulls out his bazooka. And as he shoots it at her, she uses her vital instrument ability again. She slows it down. But not only that, she grabs the bazooka shell and throws it back at him, destroying them. Moving along, after Simiyu applies BTA to the rest of the Marauders, the job is complete. Just as she finishes them off, the cleaners arrive on the scene. Engine then jokes. He says, Simiyu, you defeated them all again, huh? She said, light work. If I would have lost to them idiots, I would have been embarrassed. Moving along, the cleaners come up with a pretty good idea of who they think attacked their base. They think the culprit is the Raiders. They believe that they're planning an attack on them. Continuing on with the anime, the cleaners are having a get-together. They're eating at a local spot. But as they're eating and fellowshipping, Rudo's on edge. He's like, hey, our base just got attacked. Why are we eating food and having fun? The rest of the cleaners are like, yo, relax. We always get together after a battle. The cleaner Grease explains to Rudo. He says, when we eat, it builds our bond and makes us stronger. He also explains to Rudo, he says, this is not the first time they've attacked. And probably not gonna be the last. And at some point, Rudo thinks in his head, he says, wait, so Simiyu defends off the Marauders every time? Engine says, yes, Simiyu's like that. Nobody can get by her. And as we move forth a little bit, Rudo's curious about Simiyu's vital instrument. He asks Engine, he says, if she's so strong, why is she just a base receptionist at the headquarters? Engine then explains to him, he says, her vital instrument, she uses her sight. But she cannot defeat trash beasts. Rio the cleaner tells Rudo, she says, just because you're a giver, that doesn't mean you can defeat a trash beast. He explains, it all depends on your personality and how you treat your instrument. And in Simiyu's case, she values her vital instrument. So she's better as a defender, not a frontline fighter like Engine or Rudo. After getting that lore, Rudo says, man, I want to know more about different types of givers. And soon he will get his wish, because as he says that, the door busts open and we get introduced to Guta, Dear Santa, and Big Bro Santa. It's Team Child. And after this hilarious encounter, Rudo doesn't stay long. He gets annoyed and leaves. And as Rudo's leaving, Engine and the rest of the cleaners are discussing who they think are behind the attack on the headquarters. They believe it's the Raiders. And so after, we move along to the final scene of the anime. It's Rudo sitting down. He's frustrated. He's like, why are they not taking this serious? Then suddenly a man with a hood over his head comes to Rudo. He says, wait, somebody's after y'all? And after yapping and warning Rudo about how dangerous the Raiders are, the unknown man suddenly pulls out Ammo's boots. And shortly afterwards tells Rudo he's the Raiders' boss. And after Rudo tries to attack him, his partner arrives behind him. It's the manhole user. Rudo's attack was stopped, and now he's being sucked into another dimension. But the cleaners arrive just in time. But as they grab Rudo, they all fall into the manhole too. Moving along, we get to the final scene of the anime. And so we have it. The Raiders versus the cleaners in a final duel.